Welcome to all.
With that, Rocky told me earlier this year that he would be willing to do another program, but he didn't want to do a travel topic. He wanted to do something else. And of course I said, like what? He said, mosquitoes. And I said, I have some experience with mosquitoes. It's not entirely pleasant, but I thought it would be interesting. So I'm going to talk about mosquitoes. Rocky retired U.S. Air Force colonel at 26 years in the Air Force as a fighter pilot with other interesting duties, including on the faculty of Naval War College. We had a conversation about that.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that.
So they've done a lot of traveling, and I think they're going to hit the 100 mark.
We hit the 100 mark this winter, 100 countries.
So with that, we'll talk about mosquitoes.
Okay, unless we have a mosquito problem here. Most of you have heard me say that mosquito's never moved in all the time I've been working on putting this program together, and Dick assures me it's my antiquated computer at home that's just not playing the video and audio.
Right, you should be able to just
use this
clicker to move forward.
Yeah. So I don't want to move forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Go backwards.
So I don't, but I can't stop the mosquito. So if it starts moving, there's nothing I can do about it, you know. And it was not my intention that it move and buzz like that. Although it's kind of a nice. I wish I would have known. This is what we're going to do. Kind of the outline of the presentation today. And as always, please. Do something to get my attention if you have a question or a comment or an addition at any point here. Let's try to do that when it's relevant and we're right at the place rather than going to the end. So please, if I don't see you, do something so we can go. There we go. Yeah. All right, here's a little background on mosquitoes. And we turned the sound off so we at least don't have to listen to it every time it comes up. I found this to be interesting. They're like a lot of insects. Cockroaches are a good example also, other than mosquitoes. They've been around forever. They've gone right through all these kill-off periods when 90% of life on Earth has been wiped out. Not these guys. They've stayed with us the entire time. And about, kind of short term here in North America, about only 100 million years here in North America. And they know that from fossilized remains. They've actually found fossils, and then very much like Jurassic Park. Anybody remember that movie where they had the mosquito in the amber? Has anybody ever seen an insect in amber? Yeah, that's really true in the deal. Yeah, it's really cool when you see it and see them. So this is the second bullet to that is something I didn't know. And part of the reason I wanted to do this is why in the world, what good thing do mosquitoes do? And the answer is they're one of the best pollinators around. They eat nectar, not blood. That's not how they eat. They eat nectar. That's their primary source of food, and they're very, very good at pollinating lots of things. And they drag it around like a lot of insects. Pollen gets stuck on their legs and body, and they take it to the next place. And so we would not necessarily be hurting, but they do a wonderful job in the pollination business, and especially orchids, which are primarily tropical. There are orchids that'll, non-tropical, but primarily tropical orchids, and they're really, really important for orchids. And then the last thing here is there's a ton of things out there that almost survive on mosquitoes and do that. So they are an important food source. All of those things don't make them very nice for us, though, and so we'll talk more about that as we get going. This is kind of an interesting data point here. Is the key thing about this is 1 billion people get sick. Now it's actually closer to 1.5 billion get sick every year from a mosquito bite, and upwards of 700,000 of those die each year. That's a pretty awesome statistic. That's a lot of impact. This is a lineup. Some of you may have seen a chart like this somewhere else before or in another presentation, but I thought this is kind of interesting. You look at the chart here, and it shows you what is responsible for human death. And this is kind of nice here. Freshwater snails, you know. I mean, and that's the disease that you get from eating freshwater snails. And look at the number on the tsetse fly. I had no idea that rabies was that high. Yes, go ahead.
You don't have to eat the freshwater snails. If you're just wading in the water with them, they will start to burrow into your feet and ankles.
And that's bad enough, huh?
Oh, that's really bad.
Yeah. This, of course, is people killing other people, which has always been an issue. Here's what we're going to talk about, and we're going to start off talking about mosquitoes in general. There's 3,000 different varieties, species of mosquitoes out there, and they're kind of specific for, as far as we're concerned, what we're interested in, mainly what diseases are individual mosquito species associated with, and do we have them here, and what can we do about it? That's kind of what we're going to talk about here. This is the malaria mosquito here. We'll have a picture of each one, and they're remarkably different looking. Each one of these species, as far as we're concerned, is a lot different looking. We don't really have to worry about this variety up here. We don't have very many. Every once in a while, they'll find this particular species of mosquito this far north. I'm not going to read through all these things, but I'll leave the slide up long enough you can kind of look down through this. The key things here is mosquitoes lay their eggs, and we're going to get into more detail about that, but they lay them singly or in rafts that float along the top. So they'll either lay single eggs, or and it's really fascinating to watch the video of them creating a raft of these eggs, and we'll get more into it, but each mosquito lays 100 to 300 eggs when they're reproducing. And this is the particular mosquito. Here's where malaria mosquitoes hang out. The red, of course, is where malaria cases within the last few years have been prevalent. And the yellow is in danger, where the mosquitoes actually exist, and they have a few cases, but not very many. Very few. But wherever you see the red, that's where you have to be prepared for malaria. Ginny and I have traveled to some of these countries, and we've never taken the malaria course of treatment before we go. Just us. We say, we get it, not our day. You know, that's kind of how we approach it. And we've been to several of the countries here where malaria is a factor. And so what you do when you're like us and shrug off the treatment is you're very, very careful when you're there to be protected from mosquitoes.
What is the treatment?
There is the antibiotics. Yeah, malaria is treatable. Oh, you mean the pre-treatment? Yeah, there is a injection. I think it's 2 shots that you get, and it's injection. And then there's also a series of pills that you can take, a quite long series. For a while. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a really fun thing to go through the process of doing that. I'll get to you guys. The reason we don't do it is most of the time we're in these countries, we're there 1 day, 2 days, the way that we have traveled to the countries where malaria is actually an issue. We don't have a lot of exposure in that period, and we can control our exposure. If you're going to hang out and spend time, you sure want to do it. Okay, more.
I
was just gonna say, our daughter was in Africa last year, and in order to get into the country, you had to prove that you had the malaria.
Yeah, there's 1 or 2 countries that are that way. That's not true of all the countries.
So many of their group had not. They turned them back.
No, they'll turn, yeah, if you do overseas traveling, you for sure have to study all of those restrictions and requirements before you leave. I've been on, I don't know how many trips where I've seen people turned away at the border because they did not have the right visa, they didn't have the right inoculations, they just were not prepared with what the guidelines say you need. So that's a great point that if they say you need it, you're not going. If you need it. Now, we've been to places where you had to have yellow fever, and so we have all that documentation that we take with us whenever we go on those. Another one somewhere? Okay. This is a word that's used anytime, and I suspect it's true of other mammals and insects, but the word vector. And this particular, that's another close-up of this particular mosquito. And they talk about the human disease vector. In other words, how does this insect get to humans? What does it do? This is interesting here. Malaria is the #1 cause of death here. So it is treatable. We're going to talk more about this again. Every mosquito that bites is a female, and we'll talk about that as we get there. Okay, Dick, let's see if we can get this thing to play.
If you said, okay, what animal, if you got rid of it, would save the most lives? It's got to be mosquitoes. The numbers of mosquito-caused deaths really is a mind-blowing thing. Other than humans killing humans during periods of war, most years the mosquito wins. The mosquito sneaks up on you and it's biting you, and then you just feel this little itch and you think, oh, that's just an itch, and you look, your arm's covered with mosquitoes, you're swatting them and trying to kill them, and when you kill them, a little bit of the blood splatters on your arm. Your body isn't well defended against foreign things being stuck directly into your blood. It's a very efficient way around the human immune system. This parasite has been out there killing children and sapping the strength of whole populations for tens of thousands of years. We have to chart a course to end this once and for all.
And Bill Gates, the reason Bill Gates is here is because he's given millions and millions of dollars to the mosquito malaria eradication program throughout the world to try to stop this. Somebody? Okay. So that's just, go ahead, Dick.
Now push if you're ready to move.
There we go. Now this is a different breed. You can tell up here, if you can see that it does look quite a bit different. A lot of details different from the previous one. These lay their eggs singly. So they'll be found floating around like that as single eggs floating. It's really interesting that this part here is they usually lay them in dry locations above water and wait for the water level to come up and moisten the eggs. They don't lay them in the water. Look at this. I mean, they are responsible for a ton of things. Which of these diseases do we have in Michigan? Anybody know off the top of their head? Yeah, Zika maybe, not really any confirmed cases, but which one? Equine encephalitis. Yeah, that's been in the news recently, the serious event here in Michigan. And so reason to pay more attention to this particular kind of mosquito. Here's the normal zones for yellow fever. And we've been in many of those countries, and of course you've got to have your yellow fever certificates and things with you in order to get in to the thing. So that's kind of the zone. And once again, mosquitoes in the tropical area, of course, are more prevalent, and the diseases. Now this is dung fever, which has started to show up in the U.S. We're now getting a few cases of that in the southern part of the U.S., and that's not a good thing. One of the things here, and I just saw an online news article 2 days ago that the actual vaccine has now been released. And so it does exist now. It's, yes?
You got any idea the effective level of vaccine?
Vaccine is about 85%. 85%, which is a pretty high number as vaccines go. You know, everybody thinks you get a vaccine, you're not going to get whatever you're vaccinated against. Not true. You know, there's still a good possibility for anything that you're vaccinated against. It's certainly not 100%. In this case, it's about 85%. I didn't know much about this one. I still don't know a whole lot about it. This is an up-and-comer. Pardon me?
It's pronounced out.
I don't know for sure. I'm going to say chikungunya. Chikungunya. And it's available almost everywhere. Yeah. And the other thing is that it has similar onset characteristics. So it's easily confused with these other diseases. And again, I don't want to get too much into the diseases, but just to know this is yet another opportunity to succeed for a mosquito to pass these things on. Zika in South America in 2013. We now have Zika here. Here's where they're showing actual cases in the U.S. Those are the states where we do have confirmed cases of Zika, and it's moving north. They are moving north, the mosquitoes. And so Zika is moving north. This is kind of a factor in the U.S. And you can see that they're moving on up. Downstate, they get it first. And once again, the mosquito has to bite a person that's infected in order to pass this on. And so it's, you know, the mosquito is not an independent carrier of any of these diseases. It gets this from biting a person who's infected. And then the next time it bites someone else, it passes it on. Passes it on. So that's how they transmit the diseases. It's interesting for this particular mosquito is that their preferred breeding ground is small containers, pails, buckets, eaves on your house, puddles, anything like that. They prefer very small contained bodies of water. This is a different mosquito here. Look at how fat that one is. Much different shape, totally different shape than the others that we've seen. We have this mosquito here, that's encephalitis. In West Nile, we've had both cases of both those here in Michigan. I personally don't like to know that much about a mosquito to want to look at it and say, okay, that's an Anopheles. Probably not. We're not going to get into that when we do it. But it is interesting to know that they are quite a bit different in their appearance, and the way they lay their eggs and how they develop is quite a bit different. These prefer open fields, open marshes, open water, and they build rafts. Like each one of those is an individual egg standing vertically. And they stick them all together and turn them loose as a raft. Yes?
What's interesting is that once organic matter, swamps, marshes, bogs.
Yeah, why do they do that? Why organic? Yeah, because the larva and the pupa have to have something to eat. The pupa doesn't eat. But the larva, that's how they grow, is they have to eat whatever is around them in the water. So they prefer this as a more hospitable growing environment for the larva after they lay the eggs. There, once again, we're talking about the disease vector and what this one carries on. Here's West Nile. And you can see that we're right in the heart of the envelope there. We're getting quite a few cases of West Nile. Anybody care about the life cycle of a mosquito? Well, you probably should. Yeah, you probably should. Because by the time they get to be mosquitoes, too late. Too late. We want to get those things when they're eggs and larvae.
Where do they winter other than in my firewood?
Yes. Yeah, they do like anything like that that has nooks and crannies that becomes insulated, that they can get into and become insulated. Hollow trees are a good example. If you happen to have a rotting or a hollow tree, they like that. Under your crawl space. They don't live there. They just like to get there in the winter, be in a protected area. They can survive sub-zero temperatures, some species, some not. It's species dependent on those, on whether or not they can live through that kind of cold weather. Here's the life cycle. Of course, we have the adult mosquito, and then the female lays the eggs. The eggs go into larva, and then the larva into pupa. Of course, the eggs are, it takes about 4 days for the eggs to hatch. And then you've got another 6 or 7 days here in the larval stage, and then another 2 or 3 days in the pupa stage, and then voila, it's a mosquito. So like 14 days is a typical cycle from beginning to new batch of these. Here's some important vocabulary if you want to be a real expert on mosquitoes. Of course, we know what eggs are. Of course, larva. This is a very typical. You saw those in the video just for a minute, and that's what they look like, and that's why they want organic matter. These two things sticking down are hard to see, but those are snorkels. So yeah, so that's why they can go down, and then they just have to get those two little things out of the water, and then they can breathe, because they can't breathe in the water. And things. So those little 2 points on the top of its head are snorkels that allows them to breathe and still keep their body underwater. This instar, they go through 4 molts, where they molt their skin and go into a new stage. And then the 4th one is the wiggler stage, and finally into the pupa, which is just before they emerge as an adult mosquito, and that's a non-feeding stage. So we want to catch them, we want to find them in the egg, larva, or pupa stage, because we can take them out by the hundreds with a very simple act. One of those acts can be like dumping the water. If you happen to come across one and there's eggs or larvae, and if you dump the water, they're toast. You don't have to spray them or do anything with them. That'll get rid of them. If you can get any kind of a coating, any kind, vegetable oil, spray, Windex, any kind of coating on top of the water, they're toast. Can't get those snorkels up through there, can't breathe. Away they go. Things. So those are 2 easy things. If you happen to see standing water and you don't know there's any there, you can use any kind of an organic substance that you want that's non-toxic thing that will coat the water, and you're good to go. Here we go. This is the typical deal. This is what we've been talking about here. A lot of them like these small containers. It says the eggs hatch 24 to 48 hours. They like stagnant water because there's things to eat in stagnant water. Lots of decaying things. That's why they like stagnant water. We talked about the rafts. This is the 4 instars. See how fast they grow? They're about a 1/4 of an inch long in the final stage. That's pretty long once they reach the 4th instar here before they go into the pupal stage. These things are tumblers. We don't really see these too much because they get below the water surface, and they're just kind of hanging out down below there. Now it says that they float. they can kind of do that, but they have a similar thing here. Trumpets. This is the thing we've talked about a little bit of. Only the female bites or draws blood. And that's because there's no protein in nectar. So all these things that are out there, they're getting the nectar, there's no protein in it, and they can't develop it in their body. So they have to get raw protein somewhere. That's why they need the blood. They need the blood. The eggs will not develop at all if they don't get the blood.
What function does the male have?
The same one we have. Support the female. They're all out there to support the female. This is, we talked about the blood meal. There's none in the nectar. They don't, and I've said this before a couple times, but they do not, this is not how they eat. Biting you does not sustain them in any way. Gives them no sustenance whatsoever. It's only good for developing the eggs. Males don't bite. We knew that. Let's try this one, Dick.
This is the deadliest animal in the world. Mosquitoes kill hundreds of thousands of people each year. The most vulnerable people, children, pregnant women. No other bite kills more humans or makes more of us sick. So what makes a mosquito's bite so effective? For starters, they're motivated. Only females bite us. They need blood to make eggs. And a pool of water for their babies to hatch in. Even a piece of trash can hold enough. At first glance, it looks simple, this mosquito digging her proboscis into us. But the tools she's using here are sophisticated. First, a protective sheath retracts. See it bending back? If you look at a mosquito's head under a microscope, you can see what that sheath protects. And inside there are 6 needles. 2 of them have tiny teeth. She uses those to saw through the skin. They're so sharp, you can barely feel her pushing. These other 2 needles hold the tissues apart while she works. From under the skin, you can see her probing, looking for a blood vessel. Receptors on the tip of one of her other needles pick up on chemicals that our blood vessels exude naturally and guide her to it. Then she uses this same needle like a straw. As her gut fills up, she separates water from the blood and squeezes it out. See that drop? That frees up space to stuff herself with more nutritious red blood cells. With another needle, she spits chemicals into us. They get our blood flowing more easily and give us itchy welts afterwards. And sometimes, before she pries herself away, she leaves a parting gift in her saliva. A virus or a parasite that can sicken or kill us. There's nothing in it for her. The viruses and parasites are just hitching a ride. But this is what makes mortal enemies out of us and mosquitoes. They take our blood. Sometimes we take theirs. But often not soon enough. Good, you're still there. These are the larvae of
And that's just an advertisement to subscribe to that website. Okay, here's some interesting things. Who do they like to bite? Anybody have any experience where some people get bitten and others don't in the same group? Yeah, well, and that's weird, isn't it? It is to me. I'm one of the ones that help all the rest of you because they're all over me for whatever reason out there. Ginny? Nothing. Don't like her at all. Here's what they really like. Type O blood by 80%. They somehow can sense. How they do that, I have no idea, but that's really a thing. Sweat and high body temperature. Of course, in the heat of the summer, you're out working around, your body's heated up, you're sweating, they love that. Pregnancy, because you emit hormones and things that they can sense when you're pregnant. This is another thing. Carbon dioxide, which what? We emit more of when? We're exercising, we're outside. We do that. We as people emit more carbon dioxide. They can't see. Their version, they have like fly eyes, you know, the multi-segmented domed eyes. They have almost 300-degree vision. It's just awful. They can't see anything. It's blurry, do the things. But they can sense a carbon dioxide source, us or deer or any other kind of mammal, 160 feet away. That's a long ways to do that. They love perfume or deodorant. It's like a mosquito attractor. And the most thing they like best that we do, beer. Beer is 80 times more a draw than deodorant or perfume. Beer is the only thing they've absolutely proven scientifically that will attract mosquitoes in a human. All the rest of these there haven't been scientific studies done. With beer, it's the real deal. So you get somebody else to drink, you buy somebody a six-pack and say, hey, have a beer. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not the beer, it's the beer coming out of your pores and doing your things. And it's not the beer itself, it's the beer in you. Yeah. And I was that when I read that, and that's a scientifically 3 different studies have confirmed. That's the real deal. Beer is the deal. Of course, we know this. You know, that's just a common, but that's a scientific fact too. However, they range all day long. That they're most active then, but they're out there all the time. What about the bite? Now we talked about that a little bit just a minute ago. Of course, you see, it's not really a bite like this. It's the hole. It's the hole from being drilled, right? But that's not what causes the issue. It's that saliva, and then some people get it and some don't because it's an allergic reaction. So all these bites are an allergic reaction to the saliva of the things. And so it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you were bitten, it's just that you were spit on. So that's the thing. And some of us get these and some of us get nothing. No reaction.
I get that, and I get to it with rubbing alcohol, it'll go away.
There's 3 or 4 things we're going to talk about. Yeah, rubbing alcohol is a good one. Yeah.
That's not my imagination.
Vinegar, just like sunburn, vinegar is a very similar idea. Yeah, that's essentially alcohol.
Right.
Yeah, so any of those things, if you get it on there right away, and it cleanses that saliva out and it helps mitigate that reaction, allergic reaction to there. So we're going to talk more about those kinds of things toward the end. Now here's some things that you can do that are a little different than what we talked about, of course, ice. Antihistamines. Those come in tube form, where you can actually Benadryl and you can apply topically, or some people who are really allergic can actually take the Benadryl internally and it works. It'll work. Honey. Why honey? Anybody know a lot about honey? It's the most natural, healthy product in the world. Will not spoil, period. The things, it's totally cleansing. It's one of the best cleansing agents that you can have. It's like super product. is nature's super product, and it's good. It's a similar kind of thing. If you got a little honey, rub a little honey, it'll help. Hydrocortisone cream will help. Some people are more allergic to that than they are the mosquito, so you kind of got to watch that. Aloe vera, we've heard of that. That works. Calamine. Who's heard of calamine lotion? Oh, yeah. Don't get the pink stuff, though. Yeah, you look like everybody. Anybody ever remember, were you like me as a kid and you walked around with all this calamine lotion over your entire body?
Yeah.
Man. And vinegar. How about repellents? Okay, who's heard of these? DEET.
Yep.
Okay, now, here's what I'm going to kind of tell you about these to keep in your computer. Here is that these are kind of in order from longest lasting to least effective and least lasting. Everything on here works to a certain degree. Everything on this works. DEET and picaridin, not in the US, only in the last few years has picaridin started to become popular in the US. It should be a lot more popular because it's not strong odored, not oily, not any of these things that DEET is. So it's much more conducive to putting on. DEET and picaridin will last 7 to 8 hours if you put those on. That's a long time.
Yeah.
So 7 to 8 hours. Avon Skin So Soft. Anybody heard of that as a mosquito? No. It's good for like 45 minutes. Really? It works. It works. But you better be carrying a jug because it's only good for about 45 minutes. All right? Out there. That's an old wives' tale about that. Anything will work that has oil in it they don't want to stick their nose in. That's the thing.
Wasn't DEET one of the things that was outlawed?
No.
That was
the previous version. I can't remember what it was. Is that right? Because
Yeah.
I've got spray cans of DEET in the garage.
No, I think DEET's have been okay.
Is that right?
Yeah.
There's another
Yeah.
they used to have 10, 15 years ago.
Now, another interesting thing I found is DEET is not a repellent. Will not repel mosquitoes. Everybody know that? I didn't know that. They just hate the taste.
Oh, they just don't want
They hate it. Yeah. They land and oh, geez, I am out of here. But they will land. And I always thought that. I have DEET on, I look down, I got 5 mosquitoes on my arm. And I'm thinking, geez, what'd they put in this batch? No, that's how it works. They'll go away. So that's the interesting thing about DEET, is that it does not repel mosquitoes in its own right. They just gag on it and then go away. Picaridin is a repellent, and it will keep them from landing. And so, and I didn't know about picaridin until I started doing this research and looking, and that's what I'm going for now. And I haven't done the research yet to find out what it's in. Yeah.
Can you buy it as under that name, or is it?
I would just Google picaridin. There will be either under that name or some topical. A lot of the things that I pulled up, there are topical names for their commercial names, and then you just have to. But if you Google picaridin, it'll pop up all of the things that have it, which is what I'm gonna go for that.
Yeah.
Because I don't like. I mean, I like DEET because it works, but I don't like all these side issues with DEET. Okay.
I used to spray DEET on gnats
Yeah.
in the garden. That works.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's just got some side effects we don't really like. And picaridin, at least from what I've read, never tried it. This is not a personal endorsement. I have not tried it. But all of the research and things says that's the thing to do because it doesn't have these other side effects. This here now, Avon Skin So Soft, newest version, has this. I have no idea what that is. It's listed in all the things I researched, and it says, and IR 3535. This works almost as good as DEET and picaridin. And it's now a component, not of every version of Skin So Soft, but some versions of Skin So Soft. So if you like Skin So Soft, and you want to use it for this, make sure that it has this component in it. And this is another one that's been approved for years for use and, you know, chemical and all that. But it'll make the skin so soft actually work and be longer lasting. Not as long. With this, you're going to get about 3 to 4 hours. But that's pretty good. 3 to 4 hours is usually pretty good. Light color clothing, they're attracted to dark clothing. Loose fitting clothing, because they can't get through it when you do that. A fan works wonderfully because they're really poor flyers. They don't fly very well. We think they do. They don't. They're very poor. So any kind of a breeze, they're toast. So if you're on your porch or on your deck or on your thing and you have a fan of some kind, that'll do it. That's enough breeze. They can't do it. They're not happening.
Yeah, we ride our bikes and fly up about 5 times.
Yeah, well, flies. Now, we're not talking about flies. Yeah, those things are tough. Flies are tough. But mosquitoes, no. They can only fly about 1 mile an hour, maybe a little faster, and they don't have enough strength to overcome any air movement. They'll go with it, of course, because that'll help them do that, but they can't fight it. So that's a good thing. Citronella. Anybody ever heard of citronella? Oh, yeah. And citronella little sticks and citronella candles? Yeah. Doesn't work at all. Zero. No, if you have the little coils or the candles or things, nothing. Doesn't do anything. Now the smoke works just because it's smoke. Will work to a certain, but citronella doesn't do anything, but citronella oil does for 1 hour. It's good for 1 hour. As is what? Peppermint oil, rose, any of the essential oils. Any essential oil, pick one that you like the smell of. Any of those will work for 1 hour as good as these at the top.
Do you fill up?
Yeah.
Probably any oil.
Any of the essential oils, yep. They'll all work. And what it said and what I've read is, hey, if you've got one that you like and you use for other things, you like the smell of it, it'll work. But you've got to keep reapplying.
Because it's oil, they can't.
I'm not sure the reason why. I don't really, no, it's not because of the covering of the skin. It's kind of like I hate DEET smell. It's a very similar type of a thing to that. And it will work. But it's the longevity that's an issue. Okay? Garlic. That's my idea. I love garlic. You got to eat it. Yeah. It's good for an hour, so you got to keep eating. So it's my kind of deal. Beer, draw them, garlic, repel them. That's my kind of afternoon. Here are some other things that'll work. Basil, lemon balm, catnip, which is a plant. Penroyal, which is a plant. Lavender, a plant. Marigolds, a plant. All of those will work. You just take the leaf, rub the leaf. Yeah, they'll all work for 1 hour. Okay? They'll all work. They are effective. So anybody who likes natural things, doesn't want IR 3535 beaming around on their skin, you have alternatives that will actually work. Okay? So, yeah, it's good stuff. And the essential oils we talked about there. The most important thing you can do, though, is control your standing water. That's the most important thing that you can do for mosquitoes, because we'll talk a little bit more about their range and how fast they fly and what they do and how far out you have to range to do this to be effective, but that's the most important thing you can do. They don't like to go very far from their water. That's just their nature. So if you can sanitize the area around your deck or your house or your beach, that'll really help. Here's some fun facts. How long do they live? 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah. How many people can they bite? As many as they can get to. Yeah. Because what they'll do is they can find you, they're successful, they get blood, they lay eggs, they do it again. The egg laying cycle doesn't affect them at all. They can do it multiple times. Okay? So they keep going. Their total lifespan about 2 or 3 weeks. They weigh not much, 2.5 milligrams. I don't know how much that is, but not much. We don't have a good, comparison to that. How high can they fly? 25 feet. Why is that important?
You're on the upper deck, you're okay.
On the upper deck, you're okay. Now, I learned this, and I was really glad I came across this in several different places. When I took jungle survival training when I was a pilot, before I went to Vietnam. And they teach you how to live in the jungle and survive. And what is in the jungle? Bugs, yeah. And so 2 reasons. You want to get off the ground in the jungle at night. If you're hanging around and you're evading, you need to get off the ground because every bad thing in the world lives on the ground. Okay? But they told us, and it's easy to get up in trees in the jungle because there are all kinds of stuff growing all over the trees. So you can get up in them and you strap yourself into the tree. And they taught us, get 25 feet up in that tree. If you get 25 feet up in the tree, no mosquitoes. And it works. You'll notice that. People that have second-story decks, very, very few mosquitoes. They can't do it. They don't do it. They can go a mile, 2 miles, have been clocked at 20 to 40 miles, but they don't fly that. That's when they get up and there's, a wind and away they go. And they get up in the wind and they just glide on. So they have seen some mosquitoes range 20 to 40 miles, typically 300 feet. That's the real deal. 300 feet is how far they can go, no wind. Okay, so if you're sanitizing your area, that's still a long ways. 300 feet is a long ways to be sanitizing your water. But that's the thing, 300 feet. Can they transmit Aedes? No. Impossible. Can't be done. So that's kind of something that's been out there and in there. How good's their eyesight? We talked about that. Really poor. Can't see squat. But within 10 feet, they can sense blood. And that's how they find you. There are two ways they find you. Carbon dioxide gets them in the area. Get within 10 feet, blood, they're on you. Just like that. That's how they find you. Why do they itch? We talked about that. Saliva, it's an allergen. 3,000 species. This is interesting. When do they bite most? Not when you're thirsty. When they're thirsty. When they have not had water. When they've not been able to get water. When it hasn't rained. It starts to get dry in the area. And they get thirsty. 70% higher bite rate when they're thirsty. 3 times their body weight. We talked about that. Does an oil film on the water? Yes, because it clogs up their breathing snorkels. That is more than you ever wanted to know about mosquitoes. And if anybody has any questions, it doesn't have to be about mosquitoes. Ron.
There's clothing now that's marketed as mosquito
Yes.
repellent. I think it's that
Picaridin.
picaridin.
Yeah.
Whatever, and you can actually send stuff in and have it treated.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be good for 20 washings or something like
Yeah, I'm not sure of the number of washings, but the stuff I've read in multiple sources says it works. Yeah, it really does work. And so, like Ron does a lot of fly fishing, he's out there where they live. It's really a good thing to have. And you can also just spray it up with, when you're there, with picaridin or DEET or something like that, and it'll work for 8 hours. But it doesn't, the nice thing about having the clothing is the duration. The repellent will last a long, long time. Yeah?
We've got a fire pit, and it's high and it's low all around. It's water, basically. And I make Doug go out with larvicide in the spring, but he only goes out like 50 feet from there. That's not doing
Are you
anything.
getting mosquitoes?
No, I don't.
Well,
get
then
as many.
50 feet's enough.
Okay.
I mean, that's my logic. I'll tell you,
Well, he was thinking.
we live down across from Mosquitos Park,
Okay.
right across the road, looking across to the big lake.
Yeah.
Okay, and all around us is wetlands.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all cattails and standing water and all this kind of crap. Everywhere you look, I mean, backyard is a swamp now because of the water table coming up. And before we bought the house, about 5 years ago, when we went out, we said, oh my God, the mosquitoes will kill you out here. So one of our contingencies, before we would make an offer in the house, we said, we want to be here at sunrise, we want to be here at sunset, and we wanted to see if there's mosquitoes. None.
How did that happen?
Why? Almost every day, what happens off the lake?
Oh, really?
Not necessarily strong. Not necessarily strong. 8 o'clock in the morning. Now it goes right at sunset. If you in the middle of the summer, of course, sunset's what? Midnight.
Right.
So I'm done by midnight. But right before sunset in the summer, right at sunset, you'll occasionally get mosquitoes. 3 years ago, 4th of July, we got killed by mosquitoes outside. The only time I've ever seen a mosquito at my house was that 4th of July 2 years ago.
No break.
Must not have been. That's probably the answer. But we have none. Just don't see them. No mosquitoes. So some of those things really do work. Yeah.
We have big stock tanks to collect water off
Yes.
our barn roof for the garden. And in the spring, we always go to Walmart or Meijer and get goldfish and put them in the stock tanks. And
Guess what? Yeah.
And we live in the.
And then you eat the goldfish.
And we live in
Oh, no, you don't eat the goldfish. Okay. I mean, you know, but you could.
But we have, between them and the bats, we have no.
Yeah, that's a good idea. When you have bigger areas like that, where that will work. Doesn't work well in a 5-gallon jug, but a lot of us have little puddles that stick around where eaves drain down, or we have a bucket sitting around that we use for things, and then it gets filled with water. The trouble is, it only takes 12 days. You know, you get out of the habit, you've missed your cycle, you do the things, and in 12 days you can have a herd. You can have a herd of those things out hanging around your place, and all you did was not do it for 1-2 week period of time, and they get you.
Will detergent or soap in any water residue deter the eggs?
Not that I know of, but I suspect it will, because it kills the other stuff. It kills what they're going to eat, you know, because if it's a living thing. And I'm not sure. I think you'd have to get the concentration to, I don't know the real answer to that, but I'm thinking the concentration would have to be high enough. They still want what they want. You know what I'm talking about? They're going to try to search out a good place to put their eggs. I would say anything like that would deter them, because it's not going to be what they're looking for. And they can sense all these kinds of things, and they're going to be looking for what they are looking for. Yeah.
If you have plants outside with a catch saucer under them to catch water, is that enough water?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's, you know, yes, unfortunately. Yeah.
Did you run across any other kind of mosquito population control issues? Like what I'm thinking of is I've seen proposals to induce or introduce sterilized males into the population.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they've tried to do that, but
What do we do if we eliminate the species? What happens?
nothing bad, because there are so many other, it's pollinators, they're pollinators. They do the thing. The problem with that, with introducing that, is it works fine in a controlled environment, but when you have a 20-mile-an-hour wind blowing, where do you introduce your mosquitoes, and where do they end up? You know, they go over there and there's none over here, and all the ones that were to your left come to you. So essentially what you have to do is, if that's going to work, you got to hit everybody. That's why that's hard in an uncontrolled, open environment like that. Yeah.
When I was a child in Florida, I remember they used to have like fog. They fog them.
Yeah, that's effective.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of, they did, when I grew up too, we had that. And that works for 4 or 5 days. Then you got to do it again. So if you're doing it twice a season, forget about it.
Poisonous, because this kids used to run the hand of fog.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's good for you.
Yeah. They didn't cut it, so
an interesting stat. We have an upper deck, and it's rare that we ever get mosquitoes.
Yes.
Okay, our home faces south, and we are normally get a breeze off the lake. And
Yeah.
it's an interesting stat if you're up.
And I was really glad that I came across, based on what some guy told me 40 years ago when I was in the jungle. That's really true, the 25 feet. I saw that in 2 or 3 different places that's a real thing. So that's, I mean, not that we can do much intentionally about that, but it does help explain why the upper decks and things are much less likely to have mosquitoes.
You said 25 feet, and how long ago was that?
Oh, the data?
Yeah, I mean, the 25 foot has been like 40 years ago?
Yeah, that's when I first heard it. Yeah.
Does it vary from, like, the mosquitoes in Florida? Are they the same mosquitoes that we have?
No, I mean, these, we probably have here, some, but we probably have 500 species of mosquitoes here in Michigan, at least. Yeah, at least. Now, some of these we had, like the Anopheles, the longest named one, the first one we start. There's like 450 or 500 of those out there out of the 3,000, but only 4 carry the virus or carry the disease out of 400. So that's an interesting stat too, is you have all these things, but only 4 versions carry the disease.
So I'm just going to say a second story is typically not 25 feet up.
No, it's like 18 or 17 up. So, but it depends on where the water is too. The water has to be, it's but they don't like to go up. They want to be, well, it's a lot of work. You gotta, when your wings are like that big, it's up. Going up's not a good thing. You don't mind riding the breeze, but you don't want to, unless there's an updraft, you're not having it. So.
What about smoke?
Smoke will work, as long as you got it, it works. From smoke only, like the citronella and that, there's no repellent. It's not my idea. Whenever I'm around a campfire, where's the smoke go? Me! I'm the guy you want around a campfire. It does not matter which way the wind's coming from, where if I move 5 times, smoke does too. It's just like fishing. Where's the good fishing? Not me. It's on the other side of the boat, and so, so it'll work as long as you're in the smoke, which is really not a very fun thing to do, So, but it will work, as long as...
Machines that they have are nothing...
Don't work, 0. I should have put that up. I'm glad you brought that up because, but all these bug zappers and electronic high frequency somethings and, emits some kind of smell or something. Nah, 0 effect. They have 0 effect.
Last summer we had something called mosquito coil bracelets. They're little things like this that you wear. Do they work?
I didn't see anything about that. I would say it depends on what the active ingredient in them is. I don't know what it is. I didn't see that specific thing in any of the articles that I read.
Yeah, we have a couple of yellow ones in our junk drawer.
Yeah, just throw them on. Hey, anything's worth a try, If you don't have any of this other stuff, go for it, But I'd kind of lean toward one of these other things, though, for me. You can wear, they're supposed to, these things you can put on your belt.
Yeah. Right.
Nope. So.
What about plants?
Nope. Electronic things, 0. Absolutely 0 effect. None. Electronic things. Yeah. If the thing you hang on your belt is DEET or picaridin, it better have a pretty good little fan to envelop you in the, you see what I mean? It'll keep them from going in your little thing on your belt. So you probably won't get bit right under that. Right under that, you probably are in no danger. But it's not going to come up and envelop you with anything that's going to help you.
Little propeller hats.
Yeah, well, as long as you can keep them going.
We use, I can't think of the name of them right now, propane burners or some kind of sell on them in the drift boat when we're fishing. One on each hip seems to keep the bugs away.
Again, I don't know what's in there, but like I said, all that whole list of things will work. And so if, for instance, you had citronella oil in this, not just the aroma, but the oil, it'll probably work as long as it's running and doing that. But the citronella candles are 0, absolutely 0. The little citronella coils, 0. So you need to find something. If that's what you've been using, you need to find something else, because that's not happening.
I found it interesting, lemon balm, because I have a huge, huge plot of lemon balm. And when I'm watering it, the mosquitoes that come out of the lemon balm.
Well, they're being repelled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably plants only work if you crush them and put them.
Yeah, the way it works is you're getting the oil on your skin.
Right.
It's not the plant. It's not the plant itself that's the repellent. It's the oil in the plant. So yes, you've got to crush it and get the oil or the secretion onto your skin, or you're not getting anything. You can't wear it around your neck. You know, the garlic, you can't wear it. You can't. You know. So. Okay. Thanks. Appreciate it.